Hello, thanks for joining us. Sorry we are slightly late. We are here today with myself, Rob. I'm the CEO of Undermountain Games, and I'm going to be playing in the Mad Mage game that we are starting shortly. I am joined by Leo. Leo is also going to be playing in the Mad Mage, and we are, of course, joined by Evan Winston, our art director, and the artist who is going to be drawing our characters for us.
Hi.
We unfortunately haven't been able to get Emma in on this call, but we have a description of her character. So basically, what we're going to do is we're going to start kind of talking about our characters, what they look like, some of the non-spoiler stuff from their backgrounds that we can talk about, and Evan is going to work his magic, and hopefully by the end of this we'll have a sketch of all three of our characters to use for the stream.
That's the idea.
So who would you like to start with, Evan?
I'm kind of just starting with Emma's character, but I'm probably going to jump around a little bit. Once I get the basic idea of any given portrait, I'll probably move to the next. But for the time being, Emma's is where I'm starting.
Yeah, so we've got Kuro de Hale. I think that's how you pronounce it. I will probably be corrected when Emma watches this back. So the description we've got is wavy white chin length hair with yellow eyes, lightly tanned skin, and golden freckles, with two very small black horns pointing up from the top of her forehead near her hairline. She
That's right.
wears she wears a golden nose ring and a chain that drapes from a cuff at the top of her ear to a golden stud. That makes me think of the Bajoran ear decorations they have in DS9.
Best Star Trek yet.
Which, if you want an embarrassing anecdote from my teenage years,
Oh
wore
no, Rob.
when I wore a lot of black and a leather trench coat. Oh
Oh no,
yeah,
Rob.
so Spike from Buffy. That
Hmm.
that was my look, including the bleach blonde hair. But you can have two embarrassing anecdotes from my teenage years. I for a while I wore a Bajoran earring. I'm very pleased that I thought that was cool.
I bet you were very popular in those years.
Oh, it's very almost as popular as I am now. Um, yeah, so I'm interested that we are not being told what race Kira is. There's obviously there's some tiefling elements with the horns, but could be. I don't know. The gold makes me think maybe in Asimar.
Yeah, I'd be tempted to ask more.
So for those of you watching who don't know about Mad Mage, we're basically going to meet as characters in the Yawning Portal Inn, which kind of leads down into the Mad Mage's maze, catacomb, dungeon.
Dungeon.
Um, so yeah, we are as characters we are going into this kind of blind about each other as well.
Which is going to make for a very interesting art description for me and you, Rob, trying not to give too much away.
Yeah, I kind of like I like the challenge of that though. Like,
I bet you do.
I mean, I'm sure it's very makes things much more difficult for you, Evan. Um, so also for those of you watching, so Evan has been sent some individual kind of art descriptions by us separately. So Evan has all of the information, but yeah, as I said, we're trying to toe that line between giving him enough information and not spoiling our backstories for each other. I like
Yeah, it's a
the
blast.
yeah, I bet. um, I like the shape of the face you've got there.
Thank you.
I think yeah,
Your mouth is much too small. This is pretty new territory for me. Is doing quick well, doing quick portraits isn't necessarily new, but definitely like trying to come up with three completely readable and usable portraits in an hour is pretty new for me. So we're gonna see how this goes. I like to get into kind of my Zen moment, Zen, frame of mind with portraits. So kind of gonna be moving around a lot with this and see how it
yeah.
goes.
I can understand that. I'm still in awe of the fact that within 5 minutes, within 8 minutes, there's a readable that is clearly a you can tell there's an expression on that face. You've got the main features
Yeah.
in. I'm always in awe of it, Evan. It's so not my skill set.
I dabble in art, but it's art that I can look at and go, yeah, I know what that means. If anyone else saw it, there'd have to be the explanation behind it.
Yeah, I can see that.
Whereas this is rather fascinating to watch, truth be told.
Yeah,
No, I appreciate it. I think one of the things that a lot of people sort of take for granted with stuff like entertainment art is that, like, really your number one goal at any point in time is clarity. If someone doesn't know what they're looking at, then, you take them out of the experience. You force them to, like, solve a puzzle when they should just be immersed in the world or what have you.
yeah. I've seen that a few times in like media that goes out, like whether it's comics, whether it's like a portrait or something. You're like, oh, I understand what this is supposed to be, but what's in their hand? I'm not. Oh, it's that, and you're already kind of taken out of the immersion of the piece because you've had to
Right.
figure it out. Saying that kind of semicircle you've got around her left ear, is that is that meant to be another horn, or is that hair? Because it reads as a horn to me.
Yeah, that's fair. No, this is hair.
Cool,
So really her horns are going to be right here. And then the rest is effectively going to be hair that I'll have to problem solve.
cool.
Hair is always a fun, fun problem to solve.
Yeah, and I think you've got that added kind of difficulty that if there are horns in the picture, any similar shaped areas are going to read as that, especially before you've got colour in as well.
Yeah, color and value. But I figure value will probably come next. That's going to be my favorite part. If we end up doing another one of these, it'd be fun to just lay in and set up some value maps for these portraits and really get these characters reading the way that they should. And by that point, hopefully the game will have started. So some of the viewers may be more familiar with the characters, and it's going to
Yeah,
be cool to see them, kind of come to life little by little, visually as well as narratively.
yeah. The thing about value is something that when I first started, I had no idea that was an important aspect of the process. And for those of you watching who don't know what that is, and correct or improve my explanation if I don't get it exactly right, but it's putting the image into grayscale and then making sure that the contrast of so like the dark and the light areas all read independently of each other. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. So it's very much about like guiding the visual flow, where you want your viewers to look, where you want them to focus. Value is more important than color, even in determining like the success of an image as far as landing an emotional beat or telling a clear story or whatever the goal of that image is, communicating a clear concept.
Yeah, and I've from your explanations over the last few years, I've kind of picked that up, and where you've got like, if you've got a whole background that's all dark, it's very difficult to like immediately pick out what's going on and what the kind of information you're meant to be reading is. So yeah, it's clearly an important part of the process that, as I said, I had no idea about.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, it comes from I use this example a lot, but like if I were to go ahead and really quickly do this, your brain is going to tell you, I'm about to die, or I should run. And
Mm-hmm.
it really comes from that lizard brain portion of our evolution or what have you, that just recognizes shapes and patterns and this kind of dark light contrast
Yeah.
before anything else. It's what really brings the importance of silhouette and shape language to stuff like character design and concept design.
Mm.
And then it really then lends itself well to that discussion of values.
Yeah.
And you know me, Rob, I'm a broken record on the subject, so
I think, as I said, like I've said this again, I'm gonna be a broken record here as well. Like I knew nothing about art when we met, and now, a few years on, I'm able to critique other people's art and understand what I'm seeing. It's glorious. I love it.
See, my knowledge of art consists of basic shapes because because of various hobbies like live action role play, I've learned the shapes humans are. Because at night,
hmm
when you're looking in the dark in the woods, you recognize a rectangular shoulder, which is why if you want to make ghillie suits or, medieval style camouflage, you break up that shape. So you're not a rectangle with a square on top. You're
Hmm.
an octagon with a hexagon body, because then you gloss over it. So that's about my art knowledge is that. I can tell basic shapes, but beyond that, it fascinates me that people like yourself, Evan, have the talent to do it because I was never blessed with it.
Well, I appreciate it. Not to be argumentative about it, I'm also of the opinion that talent isn't really the
I
what
knew,
gets you there.
I
Yeah,
knew as soon
you
as
knew I was
Leo
going to go
said
there.
that,
You
I
knew
knew
the
you
T
were
word.
gonna.
Someone used the T word. I firmly believe and endorse the belief that art, drawing, the technical skills behind it, whatever you want to call them, are a skill like any other that can be learned by anybody with the right time and dedication and practice. And that's not to say that everybody wants to, or everybody's going to move at the same pace, or what have you, but just that people who often say they have no talent, I like to say, yeah, you do. Yeah,
Yeah.
you do. You just need to find the right ingredients.
We've got a question from Hexdarkfire for you, Evan, in the chat. Do classes influence how you draw bone or muscle structure?
They can, yeah. I think all else being equal, definitely. That said, at the end of the day, the player whose character is being drawn, they get the final say. If they want a super muscly rogue, that's what they're going to get. Or if they want a super lanky, halfling barbarian, that's what they're going to get. But all else being equal, absolutely. I think that class is as much an identifier of character and of personality in an IP like this or in a format like this, that it's essential um, to incorporate that into things like shape language and anatomy design.
And I suppose there's that element of you know, if you've got a character with a strength of 18, if they're a barbarian or a fighter, that will probably like gear itself towards being bigger and bulkier. But if you've got a ranger or a monk or a rogue with a
Mm.
strength 18, you're going to be wiry and lithe and have that kind of very,
Swimmer's body.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
absolutely. I agree with that.
I'd never thought about that before, but
I,
it's quite an important distinction, isn't it?
I suppose as well the other statistics that have would factor into it. For instance, if you were a high enough level where you had a 17 in strength and a 17 in charisma, while yes, you'll look big, you'll look different to a barbarian that's got a 10 in charisma and a 17 in strength.
Mm,
Because obviously the charisma changes, at least in my mind, charisma changes how you look. So you'd have
yeah,
that kind of more chiseled physique rather than that kind of rough and ready physique.
and I think there's it. It's one of the fascinating things I find about kind of role playing games in general is how different people interpret the different stats and ability scores. Because like charisma is a really interesting one for me because I think most people go, oh, if I've got a high charisma, that means I'm really likable. And I like my when I'm explaining to new players, I always say charisma is the effect you have when you walk into a room. So it doesn't have to be likable. You can be a really kind of like quite standoffish, not very nice person, but you're charismatic. People look at you when you talk. People pay attention to you. You don't have to be nice to be charismatic.
Yeah, and if
Rob, sorry not to interrupt, but Rob, I'm kind of working on your character now. If you want to jump on that introduction,
Yeah,
otherwise, we can always push it off.
no, that's fine. So we have Lethvargi. Lethvargi is a rogue. He is. Let me get the. Oh, I've lost the page. 1 second. There we go. So we've got. He's 22, so quite young. He's 5'7", thin and quite kind of emaciated. He's bald. He's that is not for sharing. He has a very kind of scarred face, and they're not kind of scars of they're not randomly placed. There is a purpose to them. They are probably, from the look of them, self-inflicted. They are in patterns and lines, and there is, as I said, there's a purpose to them being there. From a clothes point of view, he's got very very fine clothing on, like probably tens, if not hundreds, of gold value in his clothing. Very ornate black leathers with red highlights in them. I know we're not going to this part of the body yet, but he's also very kind of wearing ornate black and red heeled boots. He has a very functional, sleek dagger on his hip. And I'm not going to describe his armour yet. We'll do that. We'll do that in session 1. So yeah, he is. Did I remember the name of the? I did send Evan some images of an actor who I was going to kind of give as inspiration, and I can't remember the actor's name now. I'm just going to look him up.
can you remember what they were in?
They were in Van Helsing. which is not a great TV series, but I quite enjoyed it. Christopher Heyerdahl is the actor that kind of
Oh,
kind of
the 6 foot something,
yeah
He's very
almost
tall.
stick thin,
the
really.
yeah
Yeah, because he's in. I can't remember what there's a a kind of Wild West era TV series about the railroads that were building east to west.
oh hell on
Hell on
Wheels.
Wheels,
There we go.
because he's in that, and he always has quite a sallow face.
Mm-hmm.
His cheeks are always quite sallow and done kind of deep in.
Yeah, I mean, I like how it's looking so far. I mean, I like that kind of. You've
Yeah,
got that very strong bone structure. The hood is absolutely what he would be wearing. Um, yeah, I think I think he's a fantastic actor, but also like when I was picturing the kind of he doesn't look sickly, but he is sallow and he is kind of very skinny, and I like that. I think that kind of suits the it suits the idea of him. I think.
Yeah, so I mean, just to bring it back to that question about things like, body shape and anatomy design by class. I mean, this fellow is a rogue, and so he's also, he's not he doesn't look like the friendliest of people. He doesn't read or sound like the friendliest of people.
No.
And so there's an edge to his character, and that I want to kind of come through visually. And so what we're using are a lot of sharp angles, a lot of triangular shape language, even in like the very bone structure that you see in his face. A lot of it is designed to be very angular and kind of give that visual feel. Um, on very first read, he should read as, okay, this is someone who you don't want to, approach in an alley at night.
Yeah, he's sharp. There's that feeling that there's an edge. He will cut you. There's a that kind of whole thing plays into the class and his personality. I mean,
Hmm.
what can I share with us spoiling stuff? So he's a noble. He's from one of the noble families of Waterdeep, where the game is set. So there's hence why his clothing is so fine. But he is clearly someone with a task and a mission and a goal, and he is not used to being told how he should do things. He has that kind of, I'm a noble, I get to tell other people what they do, people don't tell me what I do. And I think that kind of, you've got that kind of confidence in his, that smirk, and the look in his eyes is very like, I'm in control, which I do like.
I can already see our characters butting heads, and it's going to be beautiful.
I think there's a gloriousness is that word, it is now, to a party that has tension in it. I think there's also a real niceness to a party that is like all on the same page and kind of working together, but I like the dynamic of, we're here because we've got a job to do, we don't have to like each other.
Yeah, and I think one of the things I've learned through whether it be tabletop RPG, live action roleplay, is conflict and tension brings more roleplay because you then, if our characters had an argument, Emma's character might step into one of us and try and smooth it over, or
Yep.
so you end up with deeper levels of roleplay because you've got that tension point to kind of be angry about.
and and if you've got if you've got the tension, you've got the arguments, you've still got your mission. So you kind of have to solve those arguments so you can carry on and make the game work. And it's a fine line, right? It's not the easiest thing to do, but when you do it, it's so much fun. And I love, there's a certain, it's just fun when you're like raising your voice, shouting at someone in a game, and you know it's the game. Like you get to kind of find where the boundaries are for the characters, and I just it's just glorious. I love it.
Oh, 100%. I think one of the things that is massively underrated in from people's perspectives looking in, especially if they're not, you know, tabletop gamers or that kind of role play genre that we're part of, is it's a consequence-free environment. If my character stabbed your character, Rob, me and Rob are still friends.
Yeah,
The fact it's happened means I can explore parts of myself and be, maybe more vindictive, or I can be more manipulative because it's not affecting my friend Rob or Emma, it's affecting their characters. And
yeah,
that disconnect means I can go, well, actually, I don't like that part of me. I've tried it now. I don't like it,
yeah.
or I like that bit. I'll carry on doing that thing.
So I'll continue the conversation in a sec. So
Yeah.
I think, Evan, there's a
Yes.
little bit of the scars looking like Spider-Man.
I was thinking Hellraiser actually, but yeah, I could see
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. Like I'm not opposed to it. And again, I think when we get into the values and color, that can be kind
Hmm.
of mitigated. But I just it's
No,
there.
I get that. I get that. All right, I'll put a pin in that and come back to him.
Cool.
Let's move on to Antares.
That'd be me. Um, right. I'll see if Rob can figure out the species while I describe it because that's going to be entertaining. Um, so I stand 5'7", including my horns. And I always have to factor in the horn height. Um, Nantaris is not from the material plane, so there is a somewhat ethereal nature to him, and he is glamoured, as in he has eyebrow piercings, ear piercings. His horns are adorned with jewelry and gold filigree. Same all the way down to his feet, or what he walks upon, hooves. Um, what can I say? Let me breathe through the background.
Horns not from the material plane.
It's
Githyanki?
no. So he is a bard and a warlock multi-class, so he is a very charismatic person and has used that to kind of help him out when he worked for a certain carnival, which I'm hoping Rob won't put two and two together. He's got shaved, the side of his head is shaved with the horns, and then he's got a long plait of kind of mossy brown hair effectively going down the middle and down his back, and his face is quite angular. I think I sent over a hero forge because, unfortunately, because of the species that he is, the photos, the kind of source images I found didn't quite portray the idea of what I saw, or at least how in my head he'd kind of been, how I'd kind of envisioned him as I was going along with the idea. But honestly, Evan, you've got free reign to take my ideas and have fun with them because I enjoy seeing what people create.
Ah, a satyr.
Yes.
There we go.
He's clean shaven, bar a very long kind of chin goatee that goes down. It's wrapped in kind of golden banding. So there's a bit of hair at the bottom, the hair at the top, and then just kind of this gold tube or kind of metal worked tube. And he is an ex-carnival worker. So he has all of that kind of eccentricity that you'd imagine someone that lives a life of traveling from place to place and being a performing bard to have in them.
Nice. So we're 3 characters, 2 of which have horns.
Yep.
He looks so happy in that image already. Love it.
You can't be an ex-carny and not be happy, right?
That's true.
Yep. And on one of the horns, he has a burned on brand,
Interesting.
which I've sent you the source image of what I kind of envisioned, but it's of Waterdeep skyline, not the
Right.
skyline, not the actual picture. Obviously, there are no images like that of Waterdeep skyline, so I've had to
That's all right, Evan.
find a negative, and I trust Evan.
Draw the Waterdeep skyline in 30 seconds. Go.
You got it.
Yeah.
We'll see when we get there.
Oh, I love this. Right, we've got 3 characters who are so different and so out there, and it's perfect for meeting at the Yawning Portal and being like, well, we all need to go down here. We need companions. We're gonna have to go together then. And that, yeah, as I said, that kind of tension that's going to bring, in the kind of, even that difficulty of personalities. Like, obviously, Lethvargi is cold. He's not a very nice person, Lethvargi, right? And how he's going to balance off and interact with a carnival worker who I'm assuming is going to be, if not nice, is going to be kind of gregarious. Is kind of the kind of idea I get, but like with their own kind of sharpness.
There is definitely a sharp edge to Nantaris, but it's very well manicured, so you wouldn't see it unless he wanted you to see it.
Yeah.
He plays off the social politics of cities and places. I'll be your best friend, I'll help you out, but no one ever wants to rub you up the wrong way.
And I love those moments in games where you realise that. Like, I've actually had it recently in a game where I run the game, and one of the characters has been this fool, right? He is always joking, always messing around, always being purposefully on the right side of annoying. And then there was this moment a couple of sessions ago where he just snapped and went into this cold, ruthless, don't think that I can't absolutely destroy you if I so choose. Be very careful. And you're like, oh, okay. Now that changes stuff. And then that really kind of quite twisted switch back to being cheery and lovely. It's brilliant.
Have you ever seen it done the opposite way? Where there is that real hard-lined, hard-edged person, and then you see them snap and they become really friendly and really bubbly, because it's just as disconcerting because you don't know what's wrong.
Yeah, so I've played a similar thing like that, where someone has experienced something really quite awful, and their response to that is to be overly nice, overly like, I need everything to be okay, so I'm going to pretend everything is great. And yeah, it's quite hard to role play, but it's very unnerving.
Yeah, I think any time where you're trying to play either, you know, dual personality, or it's so difficult to manage because it's so easy to slip into the one you're more comfortable with.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the fun challenges of role playing, right?
Yeah,
It's a large part of the reason I enjoy this hobby so much is that you get to experiment and you get to find out what you can do easily and what you can't do easily. And again, as you were saying earlier, it kind of shines a light on who you are as a person if you let it. And one of the best things about this whole hobby, and I think it's very similar with the LARP community and a lot of the geek community, is it lets people be who they are without that kind of social demand on people to be something. You can relax and you can go, I'm going to do this and I'm going to experiment and I'm going to see what I can manage.
yeah. I mean, I know for myself when I was younger, I struggled with the social side of life
Yeah.
because I'm a borderline introvert. I'm quite happy to sit in my house all day, chat to friends online. When I started kind of playing D&D with the local group, going to LARP events, kind of expanding out into that kind of hemisphere of the world and kind of the social side, I suddenly found a load of people where I didn't have to always be perfect,
Yeah.
always be happy. I could turn up and go, I'm really struggling right now. And they'd all go, that's all right, we've got you. Off we go.
But it's not to get too heavily into our own kind of personal stuff, but it was
Yeah.
like when we were at that LARP and my health wasn't great and the whole community went, that's all right, what can we do to help? And it's a wonderful community to be part of.
It is. And I think it's a very accepting community and people don't give it enough credit for it
Yeah.
because generally, at least from my experience, it doesn't matter your background, your culture, your creed. It doesn't matter anything to do with you. As long as you're a nice person,
Yeah.
you get treated with the same level of respect and niceness.
Yeah,
And I think a lot of
absolutely.
people gloss over that by going, "Ah, you're just nerds, you're just geeks," and it's like, yeah, but the culture and the society we have in our little bubble, it's very
It's
good.
yeah, very good. I was
Yeah.
wondering whether you were going to go for the twisted horns and how you drew them.
I always go for the
How
twisted
how
ones.
you drew them just blew my mind.
Watching the Taurus kind of come to shape has been beautiful.
I
Oh,
He's
I'm
so
glad to hear that.
happy.
I cannot get over how you just drew that twisted horn. Like that is how you do that. It's amazing. He looks great. He looks really kind of like quite sage and kind of quite wise there. He's probably got a wisdom of 4 or something now, hasn't
Or he's
No,
halfway through a bender.
he?
he is a heavy drinker though.
He's a satyr, right? They are
Yeah.
all party all the time. Oh, that is gonna make Lethvargi so angry. He's gonna be so irritated if you are always kind of up for the party, up for the kind of joke. Lethvargi's gonna hurt you at some point. Just
I'm
so
gonna
you're
love it.
aware. He he looks like someone that I want to go and sit next to on a park bench and have a conversation with.
Yeah.
I think there's a lovely kind of. I always like this about your work, Evan, is that you get the the not human, not necessary. I know this is mammalian, but when you do kind of like the Dragonborn and the lizard folk stuff, you do that very well as well. You do that kind of this is not a human that has animal features. Like there's a difference to the shape. There's a difference to kind of the like. I don't feel like that is a human face that you've put goat features on. I feel like
Well,
it's a goat, you know.
well, thank you, Rob. That's definitely something I tried or strive very hard for. Um, I call it like the Marvel effect a lot. Not to disparage Marvel and the many amazing things that they do create, but a lot of times, especially in their films, it feels like all of their aliens, who are not, pure CGI, just feel like, blue humans
Yeah,
or just humans in a lot of latex and makeup. And Star Trek, on the other hand, like doesn't feel that way. Sometimes it does. There's a lot of camp to Star Trek, but a lot of times it really doesn't. They're really good at just sort of selling the idea that this is, an alien person
yeah, absolutely.
on screen, and they really managed to inhabit that.
Yeah.
I think the other way they do that very well in Star Trek is the cultures are, especially in more modern Star Trek, the cultures are their own cultures and they're not based on real world ones.
Hmm.
And as I said, like I think that's much more the case in modern Star Trek, but it really adds to the kind of whole picture of a species. I think that's really important.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Oh, I do like him. He looks great.
I'm loving watching this.
It it's one of my biggest pleasures is that thing of going, oh, I can watch my character come to life and go,
Yeah.
oh, this is yes, you're right. This is exactly what they look like. How did you know?
Well, I'm glad to hear it. That's definitely my favorite part of doing this kind of work and doing these kind of, commissions when it comes to it, or as much as commissions can be fun, it's really nice getting to work on like longer form projects in
Yeah,
this space, which has been really great working with GMG in that regard, getting to see more of like an original world and IP come to life in that
yeah,
regard.
and I think there's yeah, I think we've always worked well together in that. Like the elves that we've come up with for the Saltreach Isles is a really good example of that. In that they are alien, right? You don't look at our elves and go, oh, they're humans with pointy ears. You look at them and go, oh, they're different and they're odd and there's something unnerving about them, but they still read as elves, and that like they're one of the things I'm proudest of from the Saltreach Isles are how we came up with the elves. I think they are, yeah. That's actually, for those watching, we've got a Kickstarter launching on the start of February, um, which is the second zine, which is my Thalion, which is all about the elves. So if you want to see them, have a look at that. It's going to be really good. And yes, I did just plug something.
All right, I think that brings him kind of up to
That's
par with the other two. So,
I
I'm
love
gonna
them.
get them all on screen if I can and see where to go from here. I want to make sure that they're all in a, you know, at parity with each other, I guess.
Yeah,
Um, so that should they make it into the, oh man, okay. Emma's is not there, but
yeah.
she'll
I was
get
about
there.
to say they
She'll
go
get there.
there's a journey from left to right
Yeah.
in
It's like
completion there.
it's the warm up to the cool down right
Yeah.
there. But she'll get there, and I've still got 10 minutes.
Let's have a look again at the description. Let's give you a refresher of what we said. That's the one. There we go. So, wavy white chin length hair, yellow eyes, lightly tanned skin with golden freckles, and two very small black horns pointing up from the top of her forehead, near her hairline. She wears a golden nose ring and a chain that drapes from a cuff at the top of her ear to a golden stud.
Where is that stud gonna go? Or is it really just gonna be Bajoran, from the cuff to the lobe?
So she wears a golden nose ring and a chain that drapes from a cuff at the top of her ear to a golden stud. I I read that as top of the ear to the lobe of the ear in a like
Mhm.
where you'd assume a standard piercing would be. I'm wondering as well if the horns might be slightly too big.
Yeah, I think so. They sound more like tiny devil's horns.
Yeah.
Of course, Emma will also have a chance to offer her own input.
Yeah, of course. It's interesting having, because we haven't got Emma's input here. It's interesting trying to work out what the personality of the character is, because from how she looks there, I'm going, she's direct to the point. She's quite kind of no nonsense, I'm in charge kind of feeling. Which
Yeah.
Interesting.
we don't have any kind of like it's interesting, right? Because she's got a lot of quite soft features, but there's a sharpness to that jawline. There's a rigidity to the neck and how she's holding herself that gives that impression to me.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear how Emma responds to even just that, and whether that lines up with, her own vision.
Yeah,
It's quite interesting because with the sharpness of the various characters, it would be Lithvargi to the left, Emma's character in the middle, and then probably my character at the end in terms of being sharp to soft, because Nantaris doesn't really have hard edges to him,
yeah.
bar his horns.
And Lethvargi is literally only hard edges. There is no softness to him. Cuddling Lethvargi would not be pleasant and definitely end your life. Don't try and cuddle Lethvargi.
So I'm hearing cuddle Lithvargi as a side goal for Nantaris.
Every possible opportunity.
I mean, if this campaign's like meant to be level 5 to 20, so like if in that very large space of time you can soften him up and make him want to give you a cuddle, I will be very impressed.
No, I'll just wait until you're on your death saving throws and I will run up, cradle you in my arms, and when you come to, be like, I got that cuddle, and then run away.
Very quickly.
Spoilers.
Oh, it's interesting how putting that kind of wrap and brooch on her softens the whole thing up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you read on the character, and it's interesting, what I know about the character that you don't necessarily.
Yeah.
And it's interesting not having Emma's input on this directly. But I will say that one of earlier in the same hour, I said that clarity is like the key to good kind of story design and stuff like that. And that's absolutely true. But a lot of times, the sort of gotcha retort to that that I hear is, well, what if you want a little mystery in there? And it's like, okay, sure,
Hmm.
but you can still design something to be deliberately mysterious as opposed to I have no idea what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
And so the challenge of treading that line of how do I make this readable without, while forcing the viewer to ask questions is always a fun one. And I don't know if I've nailed that or not with her. We'll see, but um, she's definitely closer to that line than Lethavagir and Antares for obvious reasons, I think.
Yes.
But it's going to be really fun seeing how all these characters interact with each other and what they get up to.
Oh, I am. I am really looking forward to it. Like, there's in lots of games, you kind of, one of the things you have to do as a player in most role playing games, but I think especially D&D, is you have to remember that you need to keep the party together, because actually, if you remove yourself from your characters, you're all a group of people who want to play D&D every week or every 2 weeks or whatever. So there's an element in most parties of, oh, I can't do that really bad thing or that really kind of polarizing thing, because we have to stay together because we need the game to work. Whereas with Mad Mage, you've got this, you don't have to stay together because you want the players to stay together. You've got to stay together because your characters need to be together, because you're going into a really dangerous and unpredictable dungeon. So there's that, you as a player and as a character, you can be a bit more free with the polarizing and the kind of the bombs that you throw into the party dynamic, because at the end of the day your characters know that if you split up you ain't gonna survive, and that's quite freeing. Like, there aren't very many campaigns that I'd play a purposefully evil character in. Not
Interesting.
saying that Lethargy is evil at all.
Evil by whose definition?
Oh, most people's. Look at him; he's a lovely guy.
He just looks so cuddleable. Oh, just gonna snuggle up.
Now that's interesting. From the she has softened a lot from what you've added to her there. Like, I think she's got poise. There's
Yeah,
still that,
there's
there's a maybe a noble aspect to her, if not noble, kind of like purposeful. At least she looks kind of like determined, but I
yeah.
think it's softened her quite a lot within that. Yeah.
No comment.
Yeah.
It's been one of the things that has driven my little ADHD brain wild, is the fact that I'm like, I have to stop myself from being nosy because
Yeah.
it's gonna, because like current Leo is like, oh, just go in and read everything, and I'm like, yeah, but you're gonna really annoy future Leo when nothing's a surprise.
Oh yeah, and like I don't want you guys to read my backstory, because one, you wouldn't join a party with him, but also, like, those moments where you spring that surprise is wonderful. The moment where you go, well, actually, here's 10 minutes of complete exposition about my character when they are angry or when they've broken down or when they have to make an impossible choice. Those are the moments I live for. They're wonderful.
They are. There's something that I really enjoy with long campaigns is like one shots are fantastic. I love a good 2-3 hour one shot, but there's something about that character growth,
Yeah.
development, and those moments where you get two characters having that heartfelt conversation and everyone is silent. Everyone is just listening.
I was playing Icewind Dale, and I was playing a 400-year-old Dampier goblin, and one of the other party members was undead. It was a custom warlock
Yeah.
subclass, but they were undead. And there was a moment where we'd walked along the bottom of a frozen lake to try and find something because we didn't need to breathe, and then we swam to the top and sat on this kind of floating bit of ice, and when everyone else that we love in this party is going to die and we're not. That's really hard. But do you wanna stay together after this? And it was just it was wonderful. It was genuinely like one of the sweetest, most heartfelt moments I've ever had in a game. It was beautiful. And then my character died, and it was horrific.
There was a similar point. I was playing a turtle barbarian who'd somehow acquired a pet giant scorpion. It was a homebrewed campaign. It was wonderful. And I remember there was a point where the scorpion was on death saving throws, and the whole party was literally sat there biting their nails. And you've got
Yeah.
my turtle like, I'm a barbarian. I should be killing things, but I really want to go run over and hug the thing.
Yeah. Although hugging a scorpion's never a good idea.
It's fine. He never stung me. He stung everyone else.
There you go. It is amazing how tiny details make such a difference. Like what you've just done to that eyebrow has made a huge difference to her face as a whole.
Because now it's inquisitive. It's like determined and inquisitive.
All right. Well, I think that she's closer. At
Yeah, absolutely. I think they're. I mean, they are looking. They are looking great. That blows my mind how a program can do that. Like how.
Yeah.
Oh,
the flipping.
yeah. It kind of makes me a little bit uncomfortable. I don't really know why, but like
You mean how it can literally do that, or how it kind of changes your perception of?
how it kind of like a bit of both, but like I understand the process of it, right? It just flips each line that you've drawn and puts them in the same relative position, but yeah, just that's a thing that happens like that kind of messes with my brain a little bit. um I think they're looking great. I think that's
Yeah.
one, it's definitely good, enough for us to start the campaign, which is great because I'm really looking forward to it. But also, I think they are interesting. There is depth and a story behind each of those pictures, and I really love it. I think that looks great.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad. Um, I'm glad, and like I said, I can't wait to see these characters actually in action and voiced, and hear them do what they do. But it's going to be a lot of fun.
They are amazing. For what, an hour's worth of.
Yeah, that turned out better than I expected. It turned out
I
better
mean,
than I hoped. That could have been terrible. Her
I'll
eyes
be
don't look
honest.
right anymore.
I'm absolutely in love with Nantaris. Like
It looks
that.
great.
I just it's it's embodied everything I was kind of hoping for. So I'm dead chuffed. Like
Well, I'm
Uh,
glad.
right, but we are going to jump off in a sec.
Yeah.
Before we do that, we've got a question, Evan, which I quite like it. So, Evan, how do you get a unique look on a character? Is it in the wonderful accessories you've given them, or is it something else? So I suppose there's a thing of how do you make a human look different from another human, and or you know that kind of question. I think.
Yeah, that's it's a great question. It's not easy to answer. I will say that while I quickly undo everything I did to her eyes that made her look terrible, um, I will say that accessories and costuming and props and things like that, they're definitely important aspects, but they're not um, they're not what I personally want driving the distinction and like sense of life that my characters have. There is entirely an avenue where that works. You know, think about something like anime or manga, where a lot of the characters are built very similarly. Their faces are all similarly triangular, their eyes are similarly shaped. And instead, with the way a lot of them are distinguished from one another are like their hair shapes or the particular shapes of their
Yeah.
clothing or even just how they carry themselves. Like, so that's a different kind of visual language. And that can definitely contribute to this. It does. You know, we see Bagi's hood and all of that contributes to their read, but I really try to create characters that, you know, even if they were stark naked, you could still get an idea of who they are, or at least who they want to present themselves as.
And I think a lot of that is the expressions on their faces, right? There's a thing about going. Only Lethvagi would look at someone like that, and I think that's kind of to me is, you know, and the same thing of that only Lentaris would kind of look at someone and be with that bearing and that kind of smirk on and smugness on his face. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think that makes perfect sense. Right. Well, as I said, we've been here for an hour now. That's kind of what we planned for. I think we kept to that pretty well. If you would like to see these characters come to life and be put through the ringer that is the Mad Mage's dungeon, do come and join us next Sunday, where we will be starting. Here's where Leo's going to go. Oh, I can't do next Sunday.
Wait a second. I'm now one of those people that actually uses a calendar. Yeah, I can do next Sunday.
There we go. We will be starting next Sunday then. Um, it, Please do follow our social media and stuff. It's all Gold Mountain Games. We will be putting updates and there'll be kind of information about how and where you can watch it. We will be doing this live on Twitch, so if you follow us here, you'll get a notification. Please do have a look at our Kickstarter. It's not very long till it's out. I think it's a month to the day, in fact. Thank you very much, Evan, who is turning my character into Spider-Man as we
I can't unsee it now.
go. Amazing. So yeah, thanks very much for joining us, guys. I hope you enjoyed kind of watching this process and seeing how kind of Evan works his incredible talent, worked for talent, trained talent. There we go. um, So yeah, as I said, thanks very much for joining us. We will hopefully see you for the campaign, and feel free to send us any kind of questions or messages you have via our social media, and we will try and get back to you as soon as possible with them. Thank you very much, everyone. Thanks, Leo.
You're welcome. Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Evan.
Thanks, Evan.
Bye, folks.
And we will hopefully see you soon. Cheers. Bye bye.
Cheers. Bye bye.